In this video, I will go through the most important things that you need to do before you apply to study in Finland. What's up guys and welcome back to the channel. If this is the first time we're meeting, my name is Oliver and I'm a master's student in economics at Aalto University in Finland. And on this channel, we talk about education and early career development, specifically here in Finland. So if you are new here, do consider subscribing. So the first thing that you need to do before applying to study in Finland is really easy, and that is to check whether or not you are actually liable to pay tuition when studying in Finland. I've already made a bunch of videos about tuition fees and whether or not you can study in Finland for free, so I won't go too deep into this topic. However, to summarize, if you are a citizen of a non-European Union or non-European Economic Area country, you are required to pay annual tuition fees if you apply to study a bachelor's or master's level degree in Finland. Do keep in mind that every university in Finland has their own individual tuition fees, and I actually have a video explaining everything you need to know about them right here. So if you are liable to pay tuition in Finland, I also recommend that you familiarize yourself with university scholarships that are available for international students in Finland. I have a video about that topic as well that you can check out right here. Alright, so after you know whether or not you need to pay tuition, I recommend that you make a list of suitable university programs and their application schedules. So when you apply to study in Finland, there are basically two ways to apply: using a joint application or a separate application system. I have a dedicated video explaining both of these systems in more detail, but to summarize, using a joint application means that you can apply up to 6 different programs with one application form. These 6 options may include degrees from one or several different universities or universities of applied sciences. There are 3 joint application periods each year, 2 of which offer study programs in English, one in the spring and the second in the autumn. Meanwhile, applying through a separate application means that you apply directly to a university program by filling a separate application form for each university program or university. This can be done in many different ways, and the exact way to apply depends on each institution. For example, you could send multiple separate applications individually for each program offered by the same university. However, another way is to send just one separate application form that covers several programs offered by the same university. Again, if it seems a bit confusing to you, check out the dedicated video that I have for this topic because I go through these in more detail in that video. So because the difference between joint and separate applications might be a bit confusing, I recommend that you should first list out all the different universities and universities of applied sciences and their individual degree programs that you are interested in. Only after you have a list of schools that you're interested in should you start checking when and how you are supposed to apply to each of these programs. So after you have a list of programs, their application schedules, and you know whether or not you need to use a joint or a separate application form, the next step you need to take before applying is to check the individual application requirements for each of these programs. I actually get asked all the time by the requirements to study in Finland, and my answer is always the same. Each university and University of Applied Sciences in Finland has their individual admission requirements. In addition, each degree program, even if they're taught by the same institution, will have small differences between the application requirements, especially when talking about bachelor's versus master's degrees. This is why you should be extra careful when reading through the application requirements, because you don't want to mess up your application because you use the same documents or test results for all the different schools. Also, please understand that the application requirements for each university are very strict in Finland, and you cannot, for example, replace one aptitude test with another just because you have already done another similar test or because this specific test is not done in your country. For example, before you start practicing for language proficiency tests, make sure that you know the exact tests that you are required to do. Some universities in Finland might only accept TOEFL or IELTS tests, while some schools are actually fine with you doing just the SATs because it might be enough for them to prove your proficiency in English. Alright, so after you know the exact application requirements for each program, the next step is to book a time for each required test. No matter whether you are required to do the GMATs, GREs, SATs, or IELTS, make sure to book the test dates way in advance just to make sure your results arrive before their deadlines. Please take into account that some tests can be fully booked before their final registration dates, and it is your responsibility to make sure that you have done the tests and submitted their results on time. A failure to do this will get you disqualified from the admission process outright. Also, a good thing to note, if you have already taken the required tests beforehand, make sure that those old test results are still valid by the time you have to submit them. You can find the exact requirements for these on each university's application website. Alright, so the next step is to prepare all the required application documents. Again, make sure to first check which documents are required for each application and in which format. These will again be different not only for each university, but also for each degree program. Also note that you might be required to have some documents translated and certified before you can actually submit them. I really recommend that you get the official translations well before the application deadline because it might take a while for you to receive them. If a mandatory application document is missing when you submit the application, your entire application will be rejected as incomplete. So again, it is your personal responsibility to gather and submit all the necessary documents in the required manner and within the deadlines. No exceptions. So the next thing you need to do in order to apply to study in Finland is actually something you should already preferably start working on way before the applications even open up. And that is start studying for any of the potential tests that you have to take for the admission process. For example, if you are required to take the SATs, I highly recommend that you start practicing your SAT subjects way before you take the actual exam. You have to take into account that admission to Finnish universities is done on a competitive basis, meaning that only the best applicants for each program are chosen. This is even more important if you are applying for a scholarship because there are a limited amount of scholarships available and they are granted only to the best applicants. So if you want to study in Finland, you must be prepared to make sacrifices so that you can reap the benefits of your work later. So yeah, applying to study in Finland, or any other country for that matter, is a lot of work, and for many people it might actually represent the biggest single hurdle that they've ever had to encounter. However, being admitted to study in Finland will absolutely be worth it, and it will literally change your life. So if studying in Finland is really something that you want, make sure to put in the effort. There are no shortcuts, and if you don't put in the work, you don't really have a right to complain. Alright, so before we continue to the next section, let me thank Aalto University for sponsoring this video. Aalto University is the #1 ranking university in Finland in the fields of technology, business and arts and design, and it also ranks 3rd in Europe and 9th in the entire world in the QS Top 50 Under 50 rankings. I've done both my bachelor's and master's degrees at Aalto University, and I really recommend that you consider applying there if you're interested in doing a degree in business, technology, or arts and design. They have a huge amount of different degrees taught in English, and graduating from Aalto will give you excellent career opportunities both in Finland and abroad. More information about the different degree programs and how to apply to them can be found through the links in the description box below. Alright, so the next thing to do is to make sure that you have the necessary financial funds to study in Finland, even if you are applying for a full scholarship. Studying in Finland is expensive not only because of the tuition fees, but also because of the relatively expensive living costs. So do remember that when you are admitted to study in Finland, you have to apply for a residence permit to study here. And when doing this, the Finnish Immigration Service will require you to have sufficient funds to support yourself financially, and you cannot rely on part-time work to pay for your living costs. Again, this is a complicated topic, and I have separate videos explaining the rules and the math on how much money you actually need to live in Finland as a student. So why I'm mentioning this topic at all in this video is because I've actually been contacted by multiple people following this channel who applied and were admitted to study in Finland, but they only had the funds to support themselves for the first academic year. Most of these people believed and actually relied on this belief that they would be able to find a job to support themselves financially during their studies. Unfortunately, this is extremely difficult for international students in Finland, especially in the start of your studies, and many of the people who contacted me are currently in a very unfortunate situation where some of them might actually have to quit their studies and leave Finland because they simply cannot afford living here. This is super unfortunate because they could have prepared for this situation before applying to the school, and I really don't want any of you to get into the same situation. So please, don't apply to study in Finland before you know that you can actually do it financially. You will not be able to find a part-time job here that would pay enough to cover for your tuition and living costs, especially if you don't have a prior degree and multiple years of work experience. Anyways, if you are interested in learning more about studying in Finland, I recommend that you watch this video and go through this entire playlist where you learn more about the Finnish university system and what it's like being a student in Finland. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.